Hello on YouTube. Hello on Twitch. Welcome to another episode of my Singularity Let's Play series. What the heck? Twitch is being weird. I guess it's a high traffic time and they don't prioritize small channels. Well, anyways, those who are new to my channel, welcome. Returning viewers, welcome back. Got another research level here. And this unlocks sanitation. We've not yet discovered germs. It's referring to, well, Iron Age civilizations haven't, but we begin to understand that unclean living conditions can make us sick. Keeping water free from waste is a first step towards reducing the spread of infectious diseases. Many of our effective health and sanitation measures are centuries away. Right. And you get it for free the first time, that you have to pay for it later. It's actually quite expensive. Ideas. Anyways, for those new to my channel, welcome. Returning viewers, welcome back. New viewers, you should know a couple things. First of all, you can find this and all my other series on my YouTube channel organized from oldest to newest videos. So you can check out older stuff. Twitch always has video on demand for the past 7 days, although if you're on YouTube, you can find newest stuff of all my different series on Twitch first. There is a buffer on YouTube posting schedule. I try not to post things in a given series too close together, although occasionally certain series based on very high volume of production have to post more frequently, otherwise the buffer will grow beyond the 2-year limit in not too long. Like my Lord of the Rings Online series has very high posting frequency because I've been doing a lot of that lately, at least during the old time, probably quite a while. It seems to do well on Twitch too. But anyways, you should also know I'm disabled long COVID affects my cognition, my memory, my speed of learning. Actually, it's brutal disease, one that the government is trying very hard to ignore. They have not created a blue book entry for long COVID, and they're in fact fighting. Blue book entry is where they actually create an official listing of disability for a certain disease, so not creating that is a huge problem. And they are in fact trying to fight my Social Security SSI application. They cheated me of SSDI based on rules like rounding down work credits for a calendar year. We'll give you work credits in the calendar you're paid for a job rather than when you actually did a job. So I had one job that was like a gig work and only paid by the month, and I started in December, but I didn't get my first paycheck to January. The year I got the paycheck, I already capped out work credits from other jobs later in the year. I mean, I capped out, so I essentially got no work credits, even though I wasn't capped for work credits the year I started that job. That was one right after I graduated from grad school, where I was struggling to find sustainable employment. They also don't give you work credits for work you do in graduate school or college. We were more than a half-time student. Though the one semester I took a leave of absence because I didn't get another TA-ship while I was in grad school. And that comes with, like money towards tuition, so I didn't want to accumulate too much student loan debt. I was trying to figure out what I would do next. Eventually I just said, nothing's working. I'm going to have to take out the student loans, but I tried and hoped I would get a research assistantship. Unfortunately, the lab I was in, which is working great, ran out of money and shut down because we do not value scientific research in this country. It was actually a stem cell lab and was working on a cure for disease, so it was doing important work, but U.S., this would be during the, during the Obama years, actually. But even during the Obama years, we didn't put enough money into scientific research. In fact, Obama wasn't nearly as progressive as he pretended to be. He didn't put a lot of money into things he should have been putting money into, and always had the excuse we don't have the votes for this or that, and meanwhile he was doing drone strikes all around the world. Really, he's the best proof that the Democratic Party, no matter how charismatic or intellectual their leaders, are just I mean, Obama was charismatic and well educated, but he was ultimately just another member of the controlled opposition. Both parties in the US are controlled by billionaires. So anyways, got cheated out of SSDI based on work credit rules, including rounding down that you can work 2 jobs and not get more work credits than if you were working 1 job, that you can work tons of overtime and still get more work credits than someone who's only working 20 hours a week who still get easily reach the cap for work credits in that calendar year. If it's a decent paying job, although if it's a minimum wage job, not necessarily. It's not really based on social contribution, because lower paid jobs, which, mind you, there's no direct connection between what you're paid and the value you produce, just how easily you're replaced. If you have a job where anyone can theoretically do the job, but the job produces a ton of value, employers will pay you very little, and they'll just take all the huge amount of value you produce as profit. Some jobs are highly exploitable, others less so. But work credits are based on what you earn, not how much value you contribute to society. Not how many hours you work. If you work tons of overtime, you're not getting a higher work credit cap. If you work 2 jobs at once, like I did many, many times, you're not getting a higher work credit cap. If you work while you're in grad school or undergrad, you're not getting any work credits at all. If you do unpaid research work, I did 5 different unpaid research jobs in graduate school and college. I was grad school 2 different times. That's 3 unpaid research jobs, because my first lab shut down my first master's. I got a master's there with a different research job, most of which the research was unpaid. Wasn't getting where I was after that graduate degree. I was trying very hard to get a position. I wasn't getting closer, so I ended up going back to special master's, doing unpaid research again. Again, disease research that was very important. In undergrad, I was in 2 different labs and unpaid research. No work credits for any of that. So the worst case is you're not getting paid for a job at all, but it's socially important work. It's just, we can say you're getting experience or something. No work credits for that. But, working a second job, no work credits for that usually. It's a bullshit system. And then SSI, which has nice work credit rules, are still trying to fight because there's no blue book entry for long COVID. So the government is trying to say that, and they can never get away with this if there's a blue book entry for long COVID, that, based on your age and experience, which actually Trump is getting rid of the rule that would allow him to do this. Although I suspect his motives are impure for why he's doing so. Namely, he's trying to make it harder for everyone, not easier for people in situations like mine. Probably make it as hard as it was for me for everyone, but who knows. Occasionally a stop clock is right twice a day. You may accidentally do something good while trying to harm. But based on the grid rules, they're going away. They're saying, well, I have a master's degree, I am relatively young, so I could adjust out the work. It's like, I can't make 4 hours of work in a day. In fact, yesterday I tried to do 4 hours. I added up my YouTube recording. I came under just a bit under 4 hours. I had to repeatedly lie down for a half hour here, an hour there. There was some point where I had to rest and eat and rest and rest and rest for like almost 2 hours between videos. Made 3 hours and 45 minutes recording the whole day. That was an exceptionally productive day. And that was from home where there was no commute to drain me. And YouTube, where I can be quite loopy, and I was for a lot of my recording, at a level of mental alertness that I could never do a job. I absolutely can't work with this disease, but the government's going to try and not help me and thus cause me to die homeless, rather than provide SSI, which is a tiny, pitiful amount of money. The federal amount is like $900 a month, plus there's state supplements in a lot of states, which can bring it up like $100 here, $50 there, depending on the state. It's generally less than people have talked about universal basic income, $1,000 a month, which wouldn't have any of this bureaucratic hoops to jump through, and yet would be more money. UBI would be great, by the way, even as a replacement for this, because the Social Security system has proven the general rule of bureaucracy that it only works for the interests of the powerful in the end. And so they try and deny people so that spending can be kept down, so there's no demand to raise the payroll tax contributions. I don't remember if SSI comes out of payroll tax. I think it does. If it does, if it's general tax budget, even more just direct impact on the rich of them not wanting to pay more taxes, the billionaires. and the multimillionaires in particular, and wanting to even keep taxes down on their higher paid workers so they can pay them less, so that ultimately they can make more profits. It's all about the billionaires getting wealthier in the end. Money is fungible to a certain amount within the economy if they don't have to pay their high paid workers as much. Not would they make more profits, but there's other ways. They just, even if they were paying them more, if there was a way they could get the money back, they would try and do that. Like, they'll move money around no matter what to try and get as much money to themselves as possible. Billionaires, and they have way too much political power. The problem is very much billionaires. Anyways, not some silly social democrat like Bernie Sanders. You can't just raise taxes and strengthen social programs, expect those changes not be undone, because the billionaires will still have all the power they do, and they'll just keep fighting to undo what you did, just like FDR's New Deal has been eroded. And in fact, the Democratic Party, in a raid 1944 party convention, prevented FDR's vice president from 40 to 44 from being vice president again in 44, Henry Abbott Wallace, who was extremely progressive and would have continued the New Deal. And instead, they forced in Truman, who was very conservative, and started the process of undermining it, as well as creating the Cold War, which could justify enormous military spending, which ultimately enriches the rich and also gave the U.S. excuse to intervene all around the world to build a global empire and maintain what was left of the British Empire. The British did not give up their empire peacefully, by the way. People say, oh, there's some trolls. Oh, the British just relinquished the empire. No, they faced revolution after insurgency. They never gave up their empire, but at the point of a gun, and they maintained economic rights, control of natural resources and such in the countries they left, and then the U.S. took over in terms of dominance of countries. Of course, we live in a world where you get, say, people. I remember once commenting on The Economist, which is just a publication that only represents the interests of the billionaires, on social media, in the comment section, and explaining some of this, and they're like, oh, there's just left-wing conspiracy theory. It's not conspiracy theory. These trends are extremely well documented and proven, but people who are capitalist fanboys would rather call anything conspiracy they don't like rather than admit facts that are inconvenient for them. Kind of world we live in. Capitalism is the problem, though. It is very much the problem. You have to eliminate it. You have to eliminate billionaire control of industry. That's what the nature of capitalism is shareholders, joint stock corporations, lending at interest. It's ultimately about people who have money making money just by virtue of owning money, of owning capital. Unearned income is what capitalism is about. It's not free markets. In fact, there's such a thing as market socialism. If you really believe that markets are the most important thing, you can go with market socialism and still move away from capitalism. Of course, markets are not the most important thing. Survival of the human race is more important, for instance, and we're headed towards climate collapse. So we really do need some central planning, because there are certain things that even market socialism will not do, such as shutting down the oil and coal industry. You can't really regulate that into happening. You need the government to nationalize the oil and coal industries and decrease production, even though it's unprofitable. But with socialism, you don't have profit in the sense you don't have money being diverted to shareholders. But if you turn the oil and coal industry into a bunch of workers' cooperatives, the workers will not willingly destroy their own jobs just to save the planet. They might own the industry. They may make sure that the people who work in the oil rigs and stuff are getting all the money the oil industry brings in instead of billionaires, but they're still going to want to preserve their jobs. To actually get rid of those industries in a controlled and planned manner, you need central planning. You need the government to nationalize those industries. And there are things that are natural monopolies like telecoms. Even under worker cooperatives, you have a monopoly that's a worker cooperative. You'll still have the workers conspiring against the general public, as Adam Smith said. He distrusted any kind of economic consolidation. So he would hate the modern system that people claim is in his legacy, but it's not. In fact, Adam Smith and Marx actually drew off each other's writing. Mostly Marx drawing off Smith's, but they were contemporaries, and I believe it worked both ways. And yeah, he was a lot more left-wing than people think he was. Smith, Marx, and Abraham Lincoln all lived in the same time period, which is something many people don't realize. And in fact, Marx wrote letters to Abraham Lincoln. They corresponded a little. Supportive letters supporting ending slavery and fighting the U.S. Civil War against the Confederacy, giving no ground on abolishing slavery, because slavery is a horrendous crime, and Marx fully believed that. And indeed, socialists have always ended slavery anywhere that it somehow still hung on in the modern world, or serfdom. For instance, you find serfdom in Tibet, which the Chinese socialists got rid of, Marxist-Leninists. People say, oh, it was just this horrible travesty. And indeed, there was some destruction of culture monuments and stuff, but they also ended serfdom, which was still extant in Tibet. It was a theocratic government. It was a theocracy instead of a democracy or anything. And it was one where the labor system was feudal serfdom. You're playing Civ 4, they were running theocracy as the religious civic. They were running hereditary rule, and they were running serfdom. Yeah, I do a Civilization 4 Let's Play series. Do check it out. But anyways, they were very backwards, technologically, socially, and the idea they were just innocent, peaceful victims of Chinese aggression. It's nonsense. In fact, that area of the world has... there have been times where Tibet had very aggressive foreign policies. They were never powerful enough to obviously control China, but because they were a rural backwater, but it didn't stop them from raising armies and being aggressive in past centuries. Maybe you could say in modern era they were more peaceful, though. But they oppressed their own people horrendously under serfdom, which is just not acceptable in the modern era. Kept the peasants uneducated, illiterate, horribly oppressed. People romanticize feudalism, but it's nothing to be romanticized. It truly backwards system. Even modern capitalism is a huge step forward compared to feudalism, which is something the Marxists will tell you. They just believe socialism is a step forward from capitalism, which is something capitalists will dispute. Anyways, this video is going to be a wind and close. Just doing a quick self-singularity here, and then can't get any upgrades that make it worth hanging out on this anymore. Can I? No. Alright, I'll do cats, do the nanobots, then I'm going to do a reset, get some upgrades. But yeah, this is slowly winding to a close because I need to do a Plague Inc. video before the current... There's one outbreak that's about to expire, and there's basically outbreaks when new one comes up every day, and they're available for like 3 or 4 days or something, and then they're gone. So, and you get permanent upgrades to make future outbreaks easier if you do them. It's just something different and unique. Eventually, once they get enough upgrades, they can do the higher difficulties, and they can do them. But it'll be easier and quicker, and I want quicker videos because, well, people on YouTube have attention span issues, and if I have to cut a given game into multiple videos, it means either a lot of video editing or a lot more talking, hello, goodbye, all this, and I don't know. It's better if I can do something quick. I did study stuff with the potential to cause categorization of pathogens with the potential to cause disease. I don't want to say anymore because people do doxing and internet harassment, especially talking about socialism and fascism in the US is getting worse and worse. And there's more and more of these right-wingers who are like, oh, I'm going to harass the socialists because they're evil. No, actually, right-wingers, you're the ones who are evil. And the harassment of people you don't like online is some of the surest proof of that. But yeah, I'm particularly able to engage with stuff in Plague Inc. on an intelligent level because of my academic background and because of my first master's. Because after swapping out of disease research in terms of genetic disease research, I went into something more along the lines of infectious disease research. I mentioned it before, but I'll at least make it harder for the trolls to have to go back and look through my previous videos and increase my views while they're at it to find what exactly it was I researched. Worst case, have them at least ask a comment. Other users answer them. Yeah, please don't. Idea tap critical chance. Yeah, please don't announce in the comments what it was I did my research on before. I may mention in a future video, but right now I'm a little more... I think I've been a little too lax about putting personal details out there online. And I've noticed a recent upsurge with the US trying to prepare to do another imperialist war, Venezuela, and try and justify and suppress anyone who stands against this. It's really, it's like Iraq again. It's about resources, it's about economic control, political domination, and it's about Trump distracting from certain files by creating a war that the media will focus on instead. And, approval ratings going down, start of war. It's literally that. So,